It's safe to assume that a lot of us grew up playing a wide variety of mobile games. Whether it was the classics or absolute oddities, it's a little funny how these simple time wasters became a notable part of our childhoods. But what about the ones that never quite reached that same level of notoriety, or simply just vanished for no reason? Developed by the studio best known for the Hungry Shark series, formerly known as Future Games of London, came 2011's Grabatron. A game that put the player inside a UFO equipped with a massive retractable claw that could be used to pick up, toss, and wreak havoc among anything the player set their eyes on. Much like Hungry Shark, there was really no set goal once you spawned in. You were basically free to either roam around the countryside or terrorize any humans and buildings in your path. A majority of the game would mainly involve abducting people or animals, eliminating specific targets, destroying a fixed number of buildings, or vice versa. Completing these missions would award points along with the game's currency, which could later be used to upgrade your ship, unlock new ones, and unlock new areas. The real fun of Grabatron though really came from finding creative ways to cause havoc. Some of my personal favorites as a kid including setting cars on fire and tossing them into crowds of people, dragging the UFO across the ground to scrape up anything in sight, hurling giant objects at buildings, and launching people as high as possible. Why this game was pulled from app stores is still a mystery to me. Hungry Shark Evolution would come out just a year later and has thrived ever since, spawning spin-off after spin-off. So it's a shame Grabatron never got that same chance to grow and was simply pulled. Clay Jam is a game I hold near and dear to my heart. Every time I return to this game, it always manages to bring a smile to my face. There's just something so charming about navigating its clay-crafted menus and examining every single monster on all of the islands. It's clear a lot of love went into this game, and rightfully so, as everything was in fact made from real clay models. The game was developed by the now defunct Fat Pebble, a small studio composed of Michael Movil, Ian Gilfelder, and Chris Rowe, who each brought the game to life with their wacky clay creations. The goal of the game involved the players simply dragging their finger on screen to guide their pebble of clay and absorb as many monsters and buildings in your path. Nearing the end of a hill, you'd be prompted to swipe the screen as fast as you can to build momentum and launch the pebble of clay into the burly beast to send them flying. From there, any collected clay would be used to create and introduce new monsters on your next playthrough, expand the hills with another layer, purchase an entirely new hill, or purchase power-ups. One of the neat things I discovered while researching was that Fat Pebble, at the time, held a create your own monster competition, where fans could design and submit their own monsters for a chance to have them featured in the game as one of the bosses. Eventually, after Clay Jam, the studio would partner with Hasbro and Backflip Studio to develop Play-Doh Jam, a spiritual successor that would instead all be composed of Play-Doh rather than clay. Unfortunately, neither of these games lasted long on app stores before being pulled. Initially launching back in 2008 on iOS as a short but unique isometric 3D platformer, came Edge. A game where players controlled and guided a color-changing cube through dynamic maze-like levels, collecting prisms and getting to the end of a level as quickly as possible. Later in 2011, the studio behind the game, Moby Game Studios, who you may know for Zombie Tsunami, would release Edge Extended, an expanded version of the original with added features and additional levels, which was also the version I grew up playing. As mentioned, the goal of Edge was simply to move around a cube in a given direction, navigating the randomized moving platforms that would either lift you up or send you down the vast void below. In addition to clip-clopping around were the other fun techniques, such as balancing the cube against surfaces to briefly hang, or using special tiles to shrink down and climb up surfaces or squeeze through tight spaces. At the end of each level, you'd be rated based on how quickly you completed it and whether you managed to collect all the prisms along the way. Naturally, as you progress, the levels would increase in both complexity and difficulty, whether through optical illusions or some tedious-ass level design. But the true highlight of Edge really came from its simple yet crisp visuals and banger of a soundtrack. I highly doubt there was a mobile game that even came close to the uniqueness of Edge at the time. Today, Edge Extended can still be bought and played from app stores, and it's even on Steam. I've always been a sucker for simple 2D side-scrolling stickman games. Some of my personal favorites growing up included the Anger of Sticks series, Rage Wars, Sketchman, and who can forget the 360 classic Stick 'em Up 2. But out of all of them, I've always in particular enjoyed and have come back to the simple cartoony charm of Doodle Army. From the obnoxious drill instructor in the very first level, to the comically gut-wrenching screams of fallen enemies, it all just came together to make the game that much more unforgettable. The goal of the game was to really get as far as you could in a level while coming across a wide array of weaponry used to take out the abundant number of Doodle enemies in your path. As you progressed, you'd unlock a variety of different skins, and after traversing about 1,000 miles in a level, you'd unlock a new stage that could have you gunning down aliens on Mars, 2 zombies in a random neighborhood, or even cyborgs in the aptly titled Cyborg City, with some stages even being complete with their own arsenal of weapons based on the themes or era they portrayed. Now, as for what happened to the game, in 2018 once Miniclip acquired the Doodle Army franchise from the original developers, Insomniacs, it resulted in them pulling it from the stores for unknown reasons, and shifting their focus solely on Doodle Army 2 Mini Militia. The creators at the time were reduced to simply consultants during the deal, but when it fell through 2.5 years later, the rights were reverted back to them, and have since been working to restore them back to app stores. The auto runner genre is and has always been abundant. Growing up, I think most of us have come across and had our fair share of countless endless runners and jumpers. But how often did we ever come across an endless puncher? In Punch Quest, punching was the name of the game, with literally the whole core loop basically revolving around punching your way endlessly through a plethora of enemies. The way you tackled the game was with a simple 2-tap control scheme. Tapping right would unleash a rapid series of punches, tapping left will make your character uppercut, while tapping both sides at once would allow you to block. As you punched your way through waves of enemies, a meter at the bottom of the screen would also gradually fill, unlocking special moves purchased from the shop. These varied from transforming your block into a teleport, making enemies burst with steam after an uppercut, or even turn every punch into a fiery explosion. The player would also encounter branching pathways that could either lead to more punching, a boss fight, or these eggs that after punching had different outcomes, such as having you transform into a literal gnome, riding a laser shooting raptor, or even whatever this is. The game didn't stop there though, as it also contained a customization section to customize everything from your character's color palette, hair, accessories, and so on. But sadly, Punch Quest wouldn't last long before vanishing from app stores. Speaking of endless runners was another favorite of mine called Ninjump. The premise of the game, as with every other endless runner, was to survive for as long as you could without dying. Here you could control a little ninja guy sprinting up and slashing across the sides of 2 buildings, dodging animals, obstacles, and achieving power-ups. So unlike traditional runners where power-ups are just picked up along the way, Ninjump would take a different approach by instead having you take out 3 enemies in a row, which by doing so would trigger a transformation into one of 4 unique super ninja forms that would temporarily make you invincible and launch you higher up. Despite saying you're in power-ups, there's one bubble power-up that you can run into, which grants you an extra life. In 2012, the studio behind the game, Backflip Studios, would then release Ninjump Deluxe, which expanded the game with new theme stages such as a jungle level and a pirate level, followed later by the addition of a castle level. Today, Ninjump can still be played. Who would have thought that turning the real-life challenge that is grocery bagging into a Tetris-like puzzle game could still be this much fun all these years later? In Bag It, players would be presented with a shopping bag and a conveyor belt full of quirky groceries ready to be packed. The idea was to drop, drag, rotate, and arrange each grocery so that everything fits snugly, while making sure the fragile items like eggs and chips wouldn't get crushed under heavier items like milk or juice. Once all the groceries were packed and the timer ran out, the game would prompt and challenge you to keep your phone steady, to try to keep things in place and avoid causing any further damage inside the bag. But that was basically the gist of the game. Today, Bag It can still be played. The brick breaker genre has been around since basically the dawn of time, but 2011's Anodia would put a modern twist to that ancient formula. In that, rather than breaking fixed bricks, you would instead go through and break a series of random unique shapes and designs every level. And I mean, there were a lot of uniquely made levels. As you'd break objects throughout a level, you would encounter different power-ups as well as power-downs. These range from giving you different types of guns on your paddle, turning your ball into a fiery, triple, or steel ball, to completely freezing you, making your ball tiny, and even creating clouds to disorientate you. At your disposal was also a rechargeable gravity ability that pulled the ball in any direction you decided to tap on. Its sequel, Anodia 2, would be essentially more of the same, but included more varied levels, a cleaner minimalistic art style, and just a bit more polish. While the first Anodia is still present on app stores, its sequel surprisingly isn't.
Hey Apple! What? Knife? Huh?
If you didn't grow up watching Annoying Orange in the late 2000s, did you even have a childhood? In all honesty, I genuinely loved watching that punny little orange back in the day. So as a kid, finding out that the infamous orange fruit got his own mobile game had me pretty stoked.
Ready? Set? Go!
In Kitchen Carnage, the aim of the game was to swipe your finger to fling a variety of fruit across the kitchen, aiming to land them in either a blender, a chopping board, or into an exhaust fan. By doing so, you'd be awarded with points along with the satisfying screams of your launched victim. If you accrued enough points to level up, more blenders would appear along with granting you bonus time and introducing new fruits in the mix worth even more points. According to the wiki, though the game was reportedly very well received, it still managed to be removed from app stores. However, in 2021, it briefly made a return, only to be taken down once again in 2023. Finally, to wrap up this list of forgotten mobile games, I present to you Highway Rider. The objective of the game was to endlessly ride for as long as you could without crashing. Though ironically, for a game that was centered around avoiding collisions, the crashing itself was probably the most fun and memorable part of the game.
I don't think my arm's supposed to do that.
When played as intended, you'd weave your bike around a variety of cars, trucks, and cones. Any close calls with a vehicle would grant the game's currency called gas cups and a brief speed boost, along with the speed of the game continuously increasing the more close calls you take. When it came to unlockables, it was simple and included different characters and rides purchasable through either real money or gas cups. But that is that. If there's any other forgotten mobile games I could have mentioned, feel free to let me know down below. I'll be more than happy to include them in a future video. With all that said, thank you for watching. Till the next one.